All right. Well, I'm sitting down with Sam Rivello. We're going to be talking about the Ascent. Sam's posted a couple of articles in our Slack about the Ascent. But Sam, how are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
So you spent some time with the Ascent this weekend, right?
Yeah, I play most of my games nowadays on Xbox Windows Game Pass. So one of the cool things about that is that a lot of new games are coming out on day one, and they're free, as part of the subscription. So that's how I discovered the game. I just saw it was kind of coming next, and only after like seeing in the last week or so how popular it was received did I read more about it. But I play like a game or two a week on Game Pass, and some of them are kind of old indie duds that somehow find their way to the subscription. But this is obviously a new title, and I've played it and I've really liked it.
What what is it about this game that's kind of got its hooks in you?
I mean, I love an old school twin stick shooter. I'm actually playing it with mouse and keyboard instead. It turned out that plays a little bit nicer for me. Might just be the controller that I have, but I like these kind of classic throwback game mechanics of just shoot 'em up, twin stick style, and it's a really polished game. So the graphics are amazing, even though the Xbox version doesn't yet have ray tracing enabled. It says it does, but when you're in there, it actually doesn't work. But I know that's an issue they're going to fix. The graphics are still really great. And I put a few hours in where you're playing, shooting lots of dudes, wandering around like a future cyberpunk world. And it's open world-ish. That's clear what you're supposed to do next, but you can get distracted by side missions and stuff like that. And I like it a lot.
Yeah, I saw somebody, talking about their review of it, and they had one side mission that kind of bugged out for them.
Mhm.
But other than that, they've had a relatively good experience. Somebody else I chatted with said that they ran into like an audio bug, and they were like, I can't. It wouldn't resolve no matter what they did. So they're like, I'm just gonna have to come back to this later. The bugs aside, though, I mean, this game is setting records. It did like $5 million, not including the income from Game Pass. And what do you think attributed to that?
I mean, the game surprised me. I didn't even know it was coming. So maybe they had a lot of good lead up exposure that got people excited before it came out. I just noticed it was kind of ready to be downloaded and played. Once you're in the game, I mean, the level of polish, the story, the world feel pretty well built out. As I mentioned before, the graphics are really awesome. So that's a cool point to, of any game. Gets you kind of in there. I know I was thinking I was playing it last night. The character models are quite interesting. So it's like a futuristic world where there's humans and non-humans who have been augmented. So the characters you come across are a mixture between technology and then some biology to their base. But they've got all kinds of hoses and computers built into their body, which we've seen that in a lot of different types of games. But I think it's done in a fresh way. Like the characters feel like they had some cool designers behind them.
Yeah, I jumped in this morning for a little bit, and the graphics, like you said, the world feels alive, and it feels dirty. Especially
Yeah.
that first
Yeah.
stage is just like you're dealing with some kind of like sewage leak or something that you have to try to fix. But there's garbage everywhere. You're running into garbage, you're kicking garbage around. The sound design mixed with just the rumble of the controller, even like it's I think it's something we've gotten used to over the years as it's it's just a mainstay when it comes to game development. But it's just a great job of making the guns feel like there's some weight to them. Like when you're firing even that first gun, that first like magnum, it's like it feels like it has some kick, and then jumping into the machine gun, like the little like Uzi or whatever it was, it just felt good. And the sound effects for when you're shooting the monsters, it all of it was just it just feels really well done. And then that first boss fight even was just like it was pretty intense, and you've got to be jumping around and moving around and then getting your shots in when you can. And so have you done this mainly solo, or have you played with anybody online?
I've only did solo, and the one time I tried to check out playing multiplayer, I think you have to host the game and invite somebody manually. I didn't dig in too deeply. So I think you have to kind of have a friend who has it up front. Maybe
Gotcha.
they'll tweak that in the future so you can find randoms. But I've only played one player against the computer. And yeah, I agree. The audio polish is super good. The graphics and the animation is really good. The cutscenes are awesome. And the world is like, it feels really, I mean, dirty as you said, but also there's such variety into the level design. You're coming across things that I imagine have to be procedurally generated, but they feel very different as you're exploring a mostly destroyed kind of shopping world of the future level, where you're in for the first couple hours. I thought that was super cool. And the one mechanic that the game has that was kind of new to me as a twin stick shooter is you can decide to shoot high or shoot low, which typically you just don't do that. You're just choosing which angle around you to shoot, and it's always shooting kind of from the hip. So that ends up being a pretty robust part of the gameplay when you get into big firefights, because you can duck and then blind fire above you, and that feels good. I like the game's controls feel pretty approachable, but once you get into a big firefight and die several times, you realize like, oh, I actually have to think about this, and then some strategy comes up.
I had a feeling that was going to be the case. I mean, the first level, it's like tutorial, right? You're kind of just learning the ropes, but it felt like, especially like you were saying, like as soon as they had me shooting up, of course I was shooting over the heads of all the monsters that were heading towards me, but I was like, what is this going to lead to? You know, it's exciting to know once I get further along. I've only played just for a little bit. I wanted to get some hands on before we talked about it. But I've talked to somebody recently, and they were like, I sat down and 7 hours passed, and I didn't realize like how they were just completely immersed and just totally loving the game. So, do you see this as a game that you'll probably play all the way through?
It's pretty rare that I'll get into a game and play it all the way through. I mean, as in part as a game developer, I look at a game and I'm kind of studying how it was designed. And once I kind of figure that out, a lot of the interest for me leaves. But this one feels pretty tight. I'd especially like to get into it if I could get a different controller. I have a Nintendo Pro controller, which
Mm.
works pretty well in Steam, but not so good on some other PC titles. So that's why I ended up using the mouse and keyboard. But I can tell it would be way better if I got a good Xbox controller connected to my Windows.
Yeah, even just the vibrations in the triggers that are on the
Yeah,
Xbox
totally.
controller, it was coming through very well. So, well, Sam, thank you so much for taking the time to chat about the Ascent today. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thanks a lot.